Well. DJ Uiagalelei out with a fractured finger. Backup quarterback in to start for the Seminoles. Can the Florida State Seminoles give the Clemson Tigers a contest this weekend in Tallahassee? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up in tonight's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I am Tiger Paul Craven. Welcome to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We are on the road to 6,000 subscribers. You guys got us to 5,000. Now we're on the road to 6,000. Thank you guys so much for the support. And as always, this is a live video, so hit that like button while you're in here. That helps us out with that pesky YouTube algorithm, brings more people in and more people to chop it up about Clemson football and college football. And then last but certainly not least, if you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show, hit that super chat feature and me and Jordan will read and respond to your comment and or question attached to that super chat. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. What's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Good, man. All things considered, it's been a very turbulent week for, I'm sure, a lot of people, especially, within the state of South Carolina and Western North Carolina. And so I wanted to start off and just say, for any of you guys that were in the affected areas, some of you got it way worse than me and TPC did. And I just want to extend my condolences. And obviously didn't want to start the show off on a somber note, but I felt like I just wanted to put that out there because I know a lot of people are hurting right now and dealing with a lot of loss. So I just wanted to extend that. And hopefully this show tonight will give you a little bit of levity from all the turmoil.
Yeah, absolutely. Thoughts and prayers, hearts go out to all those people that were affected. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's still a ton of people without power. There's people that lost every single thing that they own, essentially. And that's tough. I did want to give a quick shout out to TJ Moore. He's got a GoFundMe. His family home was completely devastated. It's a total loss. His family lost everything. So Clemson fans, Clemson family, pull together. Go search out TJ Moore's GoFundMe and go help a Clemson family in need during a very difficult time. There's a ton of people in the upstate of South Carolina, East Tennessee, Western North Carolina, upstate Georgia that are just going through it, and then the people in Florida as well. So our hearts are go out to those people, but at the end of the day, we love college football, and it's a good distraction when you have all that stuff to think about. It's nice to get away for an hour or two, and we are honored that you chose us to be that outlet to kind of get away from all the stuff that's going on right now. So thank you guys so much for being here. We got 18 people in the live chat right now. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button while you're in here. If you're not subscribed, I don't know what you're thinking, but go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers, and me and Jordan do the All In Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. right here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. We also do a live post-game reaction to each and every Clemson Tiger game every single year. I'm going to give a quick shout-out to the comment section. We got Isaac Smith in here. Zachariah's in here. John Sarian, one of our OGs and one of our moderators. Thank you so much for showing up. Jay's in here. College Football Kickoff is in here. Thank you so much for being in here. And Jordan, we got our first super chat. I'll let you go ahead and take that one away.
My boy Kuzi with his becoming customary super chat. He says, Pookie Jojo Bear, I love you. We're still recovering from the storm, barely have any service or Wi-Fi still, but go Tigers. Yeah, Kuzi, my boy, he's up in the upstate. And you know how they got hit really, really hard. Hey, I hope things are doing well, man. Him and his wife and he's got a kid on the way in the months. So, just my thoughts and prayers, and hope that, you guys get power restored pretty soon. And thank you for the $5 because you didn't have to do that. Honestly, you probably could have used that to, I don't know, buy a can of soup or something. I don't know. I don't know what you're cooking over there. But yeah, thank you once again, man.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you. You did not have to do that. Sorry you're going through all the stuff for the storm. But yeah, shout out to Pookie Jojo Bear. If you know, you know. And we'll go ahead and leave that there. But thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Really do appreciate your support on the show and on the channel. Jay says TJ Moore's GoFundMe is currently up to $26K. So that's awesome. Happy for his family. Hopefully it continues to grow and they get everything worked out and, everything's on the up and up.
Absolutely. All right, let's dive on in. You ready?
Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention before we dive into the show tonight. Mekhi Williams-Lee committed to the Tigers. So we picked up a edge guy, 3-star, 4-star, depending on what recruiting agency you look at. But we filled a hole of one of those decommits that we had along the defensive end position. So shout out to Mekhi Williams-Lee and welcome to the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely. Really loved his tape. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did when Clemson extended the offer, but man, really twitched up, extremely quick, and with really good strength. Better play strength than you would expect from a guy his side because he plays a lot on the interior in high school. But yeah, he's a really, really, really great athlete, and I think this is a really good take for this Clemson recruiting class and a big time addition for this defensive line because he's like that. He's like that, and he's playing in 5A, 5A or 6A. I can't remember. I think it's 5A. Georgia, Atlanta high school football. So he's one of them ones. So really excited to add him to the class, and kind of a nice little consolation with all the with a couple of decommits that you've had, and plus former NC State commit. So you kind of got to beat Dave Dorn twice. So feels good.
Beat him on the field and stole their 4-star defensive end. So that's a win in my book anytime, and couldn't come against a better coach.
Absolutely.
All right, Jordan, I think it's time to dive into the show tonight. We got several topics we want to cover. And first up in the shoot tonight is an injury update for the Tigers. This is an ever-growing list for the Clemson Tigers. Not season-ending injuries or anything like that, although we've had our fair share of those so far this season as well. Thoughts to Kobe McLeod and who am I missing that's out for the season?
Watson Young.
Adam Randall out for an extended period of time, although Dabo did say that he was looking very good and responding very well after his surgery on his foot there. So shout out to him. Hopefully he has a quick recovery. But this is an ever-growing list for the Tigers. I'm going to go ahead and list the guys, and then we'll talk a little bit about the impact that it could possibly have on this game and the Clemson season going forward with a couple of these guys. Some of these guys are scheduled to be back this game, hopefully. Fingers crossed nothing happens in practice. But we got Peter Woods. Dabo said he's practiced every single day, sounding like that he's going to return to the team, and it couldn't come at a better time. We need Peter Woods in the worst way along that defensive end position. Not that the guys filling in have done terrible, but we've showed some vulnerability along the edge for the Clemson Tigers defense. We'll get into that a little bit later. DeMonte Capehart day-to-day, Tyler Brown day-to-day as well. Antonio Williams, Dabo said he's good to go, so he's not day-to-day. That was the first non-day-to-day guy I think we've ever gotten out of Dabo so far in the 2024 season. Anyway, so Antonio Williams full go for Saturday's contest. Colin Sadler day-to-day. Troy Stellato day-to-day got hurt last week in practice. Obviously, we didn't know about it until game time, and he didn't play. So he's day-to-day as well. What are your thoughts on this ever-growing list of injuries or guys that are just, kind of banged up for the Tigers, and what kind of impact could it have on this Florida State game and then the broader season going forward for the Tigers?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear at this point. This staff is really trying to do their best to manage this, kind of load manage this group, because they want to make sure that their best guys are healthy. So, I think not all of these injuries are super serious, but they want to make sure that they heal up correctly and are good to go. And so, it could have an impact. I mean, you're getting Peter Woods back is obviously the biggest biggest addition you could possibly get. Massive for this defensive line group, this defensive end group, and will help you a lot in terms of your run defense and setting the edge. And so, it's good that these guys are, there's nothing there doesn't seem to be anything long term. And we'll see who gets to go on game day, because again, day to day can mean they're out for another, this game. It could mean they're out for 2 more games, or it could mean they're going to play on Saturday, and you have no idea. It's not great that you don't have Colin Sadler, because again, he's been a reliable 6th guy to fill in and spell, especially at the guard position. So if he can't go, that does make things a little bit muddier in terms of your depth after Trent Howard. And so, but I think all things considered, it could be a lot worse. And glad that you're getting Peter Woods and Antonio Williams. And Antonio Williams played last week, so you didn't really lose him. But having him healthy is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely love to see Antonio Williams back a little bit healthier. Hopefully a week more of recovery, getting into the training room, getting that treatment, has him playing and feeling a little bit better against the Seminoles. DeMonte Capehart, that dude's a beast when he's healthy and he's on the field. So hopefully he's a go for Saturday, because I think his impact is kind of unmatched in the middle of that defense. Although we got some dudes there too, Trey Williams, Defiling Green. You can rattle off the rest of the defensive tackles as well. But DeMonte Capehart, I think, is just one of those unique guys that when he's not on the field, you can tell. He just has that kind of presence on the field. Peter Woods, a guy we need. We've struggled to set the edge, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we do the breakdown of Florida State and Clemson. But we need him back, and we need him healthy because he's just a big piece of that defense. And you can tell that he's been missing for a period of time now. So hopefully we can get him back. Hopefully we get a few more of these pieces back, and we don't rack up too many injuries during the Florida State game. But as of right now, Clemson's looking pretty good in the injury department. Just a bunch of guys with kind of banged up, kind of knick-knack injuries, just stuff that happens throughout the season for every football team in America. So,
yeah, and we'll see who gets to go among the day-to-days on Saturday. So it's always kind of a fun little guessing game.
It's a roll of the dice, man. You never know who's gonna go and who's not gonna go. So we'll see. We should start doing. They should start doing prop bets on which day-to-day player for the Tigers is gonna play.
Hey, that'd be fun. Yeah, you could probably make some good money if you get some intel early on.
Yeah, you got an inside guy. You might be able to make some money. All right, guys, we got 34 people in the live chat right now. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button while you're in here. Get as close to that 34 number as we possibly can. And also remember that you can catch Clemson live on all your favorite audio platforms, anywhere you get your podcast, the long format audio of all of the shows that we do here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football are all there for you to listen to, rate, review, subscribe there. Again, Clemson live on all your favorite audio platforms. All right, Jordan, this past Saturday, Clemson Tigers faced off against the Stanford Cardinals. It was a interesting game for a portion of it, but Clemson ended up winning the game 40-14. Got the job done. Faced a little adversity throughout the game. The offense faced a little bit of adversity, a little bit of sputtering and kind of drive stalling here and there for various reasons. The defense in the first half, obviously, kind of allowed that perimeter run to really gash them and really cause problems. The QB run caused a lot of problems in that game against Stanford as well. So it was nice to see, I think, for the offense to overcome adversity. It was nice to see Cade Klubnik stand in that pocket and take a couple shots and deliver the football and deliver catchable passes to the defense. I think the offensive line probably played its worst game of the season, possibly. But that's not to say they played terrible, but they allowed a little bit more pressure. They allowed their first sack that was credited against the offensive line for the 2024 season. Defense, obviously, the edge was a point of struggle, specifically in that first half. Turned the page to the second half. They kind of got it going a little bit, as did the offense, and Clemson kind of stretches the lead. Comfortable 26-point win at the end of it. But you did see some adversity happen. Shout out Barrett Carter. Shout out R.J. Mickens. They probably had their best games of the season this past Saturday. So what were your, just kind of trying to put a bow on the Stanford game, what were your overall thoughts going back, looking at the game now that we've had, 4 or 5 days to kind of digest it and kind of gather our thoughts on it? What were your kind of final thoughts on that Stanford game?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start defensively because that was the group that, you saw a lot of you saw a consistent struggle. And obviously you mentioned setting the edge. At this point, you see the youth and inexperience that you have in that group. And I thought some guys flashed. I went back and watched the game. And, I think in the post game, I gave Jaheim Lawson a hard time. I thought he actually, going back and rewatching his snaps, he played a lot better than I thought. And so, potentially he's a guy that could slowly start to emerge and, be another option behind, Peter Woods. And of course, you have Cade Denhoff. But there's not really a clear rotation. AJ Hoffler, a guy, I've been banging the drum for, but he definitely struggled in this game. And that's what I thought in the post game, and it confirmed it, on the rewatch. So just kind of, it's good teach tape, as we've talked about, and this defense clearly, they have a lot of guys that are still kind of figuring their roles out and learning kind of as we go. But the good thing is the offense is scoring points and giving them the leeway to do so. And offensively, you faced adversity. I thought they responded well. Stanford was extremely aggressive. Played a lot of man. They walked a lot of guys up on the line of scrimmage. They didn't want Clemson to run the ball, to beat them running the ball. And Clemson said, okay, well, if you're going to give us, over the top, we're going to keep taking shots. And they did it. And that's what we've been, like I said in the postgame, that's what we've been looking to see out of a Clemson offense for the better part of 3 seasons. And you saw that they kept plugging, and eventually they hit. And Cade, despite some execution errors and some underthrows and some wide receiver and tight end drops, they still managed to put up over 400 yards of offense and 40 points. So, I mean, a bad game or an underwhelming game from this offense still has the ability to be explosive and put up a lot of points. And we definitely couldn't say that last year. I mean, a game like this would have ended with Clemson scoring like 17. Yeah. So it's good to see.
No doubt about it. And look, we're obviously going to point out the things that Clemson did not do well in that game. But at the end of the day, it's a far cry from the Clemson team that we saw last year. Clemson football kickoff makes a great point in here. Struggled, but still up 20-7 at the half. Starters finished 40-7. Not a bad game. Absolutely not. And that's kind of the point that I think both of us made during the post-game live video was, with all the things that could be cleaned up and could be done a lot better on this Clemson team, we were still in control of the game for the entire game. The game was never really in doubt. You never felt like Clemson was in danger of losing the game at any point. But there were certainly things that we could clean up, and that's not something we would have saw from this Clemson team last year. We would have been in a dogfight down to the end, stressed out, having half a heart attack in the fourth quarter, wondering if we're going to pull it out or we're going to have another, heartbreaking loss with some crazy turnover. That would have been last year, and that wasn't this year. So shout out to this team and the growth that they've done over the offseason and how different a year makes. It's fun to watch, and it's great to see that the offense has the ability now to pick up the defense when they are struggling a bit, when teams are moving the ball against them. And shout out to the defense as well for their red zone defense. It was great in the game. As much as Stanford moved the ball up and down the field, as soon as they got to the red zone, credit Clemson's defense for forcing them into those mistakes. I think some of those were probably bad calls on Stanford's part. But Clemson still forced them into those mistakes and capitalized on them. So overall, I think it was a good game for the Tigers, and it was nice to see them go through a little adversity after, as Dabo said, and I don't know if it was his post-game press conference or one of his weekly press conferences, but after a few easy halves, they finally got to, get on Clemson and the players a little bit during halftime because of, some of the play that was happening out on the field in that first half.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll continue to see how this team grows. And obviously this matchup is going to be it's going to be a bigger test than, probably the record will indicate, but especially offensively, Florida State's defense is still pretty good and has some really talented football players. So you're going to have to see the execution be on point in this game as well if you want to have the result that maybe the point spread would indicate, or even more. So we'll definitely see.
Did we hear anything about Daniels and his injury that he sustained during the game? Is he?
Yeah, I think they suspected it was an ankle. I know he's going to be out for a little bit, but I went and looked, I think yesterday or a couple days ago, and there wasn't anything definitive. So I'm not really sure.
Okay. Well, hopefully he makes a quick recovery. I know that offense is going to look vastly different without him in there. So hopefully he makes a quick recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he was very upset. So I hope it wasn't, too bad. But I don't know if there's been any. I could probably look it up real quick, but I'll do that later.
All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for the Stanford game. And before we move on to our next topic of the show, just a word from our sponsor.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.
All right, guys, you heard from Mark Rogers there. Go check out the Patreon page. Go check out the Voice of College Football bets. If you're into sports betting, if you're into putting small wagers or large wagers, whatever you got on college football, and that's what makes some of those games interesting for you. I would encourage you to go check out Mark Rogers and his team over there that give amazing insight and good picks against the spread. And I'm sure you might even win a couple bucks if you play your cards right. Also, we got 26 people in the live chat right now. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And that would be greatly appreciated and help me and Jordan out with all the stuff we do here on the All In Show. All right, Jordan, it's time to turn the page. It's time to start the Florida State preview here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. This game has changed quite a bit since the offseason. This was one of the games in the offseason that a lot of people, ACC fans and just college football fans alike, had circled. This Florida State team came into the season as a heavy favorite to take the conference once again for the second season in a row, coming off a 13-1 season where they, if you ask a lot of people, got snubbed from the college football playoffs. If you ask some other people, they didn't deserve to be there. But that's neither here nor there. But a lot of storylines have changed in this game. Not only has Florida State not looked anywhere close to the team that we thought they would be, they're just 1-4 on the season. They have now benched their starting quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, former Clemson Tigers quarterback. So there's another storyline that has kind of drastically changed. Clemson will not be playing against their former quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei. Instead, backup quarterback Brock Glenn is going to get the start. DJ is injured. He has a broken finger on his throwing hand. But Mike Norvell made it clear in the postgame press conference that he was about to make a change regardless. So lots of storylines, lots of intrigue in this game have completely shifted since the preseason and since early on in the season. So, Jordan, overarching thoughts on this matchup against Florida State. Clemson travels down to Tallahassee, 7 p.m. kickoff. Overarching thoughts on this game before we dive into offense versus defense and the matchups that we like or don't like based off of the personnel.
Yeah. You kind of hit on it. This game certainly has lost a lot of the luster maybe it had before the year.
Yeah.
But if you guys were listening to me, I was on the Florida State show earlier, like a couple hours ago. And we kind of talked about how these two programs still are the marquee brands in the ACC. I mean, they're the ones getting the 7:00 ABC slot, even though Florida State is 1-4. So I think at the end of the day, this game still means a lot, and it's massive. I think for Clemson to come in and win, especially since this is your first road test of the year, and we have not seen how this offense performs in a hostile environment, and we've seen how it looks outside of Memorial Stadium at least one time, and it wasn't very good. So we don't really know how this team is going to travel and how this offense will travel, because that's kind of been a trend anyway. If you go back and look at last year, Cade Klubnik was a much better quarterback at home than he was on the road. So will that be more of the case this year, or has the corner truly been turned and the explosiveness we've seen the last 3 games going to travel on the road? So that's another thing. And Florida State, again, while this team isn't very good collectively, they have a lot of talented football players, particularly defensively. They have multiple NFL guys. This is the best. This is the best collection of athletes that you will have played since you played Georgia. And so I want to see how they match up and how this Clemson team responds to facing the caliber of athlete that Florida State has. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So, that's really where I'm going to have my eye on. Like, is the offense still the offensive line the same physicality against the talented Florida State defensive line? Are you still hitting on the explosive plays? Is the creativity and the versatility does that still show? And I think that'll ultimately decide whether or not this team is truly figured it out, or we still might have some growth to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's going to be very interesting, and although I opened up with some of the things that make this matchup, far less intriguing than it was, during fall camp. This is still a very interesting matchup. It's still a rivalry of sorts because of these two teams and their pedigree in the ACC, and it's kind of Florida State's conference or it's Clemson's conference, and they kind of go back and forth. So there is still some intrigue on this game. And Jordan, I wanted to ask you a question because I've seen this in a lot of different places. It's on various message boards. There's been people on YouTube talking about it, fans talking about it, and the talk is, hey, what are the chances that FSU kind of puts it together for one game, just circles the wagons, has a pride game, rallies around, newly starting quarterback Brock Glenn. I know he's had a couple starts last season. When Jordan Travis went down with that gruesome injury, I know he played a short time last week when DJ went out and got benched, but haven't seen a lot of him. But you could see, we've talked about this in the past. We talked about this when we were going into the North Carolina State game, right? About teams rallying around, a new starter, a younger quarterback, and just kind of catching fire for one game. Do you think there's any possibility that Florida State, because if you look at their roster, it's immensely talented. Now, they've played terrible, frankly, this season. Absolutely terrible. But if you look at their roster and you look at the talent, I mean, they got a scary roster. Is there any chance they put it together on Saturday against the Clemson Tigers in Tallahassee?
Yeah, that's ultimately the question, and we'll see. I think defensively, I think Florida State absolutely has the capability to make this game interesting. And obviously, Brock Glenn being the starter, you don't really know. You've seen him in very limited action.
Yeah.
This is his first start of the year, and sometimes kind of like with CJ Bailey and NC State, like you don't really know, and sometimes they perform better than expected because the defense that they're facing doesn't really know what to expect, and sometimes they look like young, inexperienced quarterbacks.
Right.
So that's ultimately the question about whether or not this game is a competitive one that we're sweating out more than we think, or Clemson absolutely blows them out of the water. Because I don't think the opposite is going to happen for obvious reasons. I don't expect Florida State to be in position to run away with it. So we'll see.
Absolutely. And, I think, to your point, I think there is a world where, Florida State could come out hot. They could get a turnover. They could start fast. Maybe the defense forces Clemson to make a mistake. Offense takes over on a short field, puts the ball in the end zone, get a little momentum, crowd gets into it. Suddenly it becomes a much more difficult atmosphere for the Clemson Tigers to deal with. I think Clemson ultimately wins the game regardless of what happens. But you could definitely see an avenue where that defense steps up. If you look at just the talent profile of that defense, they definitely have the capabilities to give Clemson some issues on Saturday. Now, will they therein lies the $1 million question, if you will. But you could certainly see a team rallying around, kind of wounded animal mode, if you will, for the Florida State Seminoles. They really have nothing to lose going into this game. And they really have nothing to gain either. Their season is essentially over at this point. They already have, multiple conference losses. They've kind of just, not started how we thought they were going to start. But it will be interesting to see kind of how they come out. If they come out with energy, if they come out, looking to just make a statement and build off of it. We will see on Saturday. It'll definitely be something to watch. It would not surprise me if they came out with a very spirited effort on Saturday against Clemson. But let's go ahead and shift gears, Jordan, to kind of the Clemson offense and how they match up against that ultra-talented Florida State defense that's kind of underperformed so far this season. Good things for Clemson is the running game has been on point so far this season, right? Outside of a few pockets. Moffa's averaging 8 yards per carry. He's got 2 touchdowns on the season. I think he's up over 350 yards or somewhere in that neighborhood. The explosive plays are becoming almost consistent for this Clemson offense. They're clearly going to take shots down the field regardless of what's happening. Cade's seeing the field really well. But on the flip side, you look at this FSU defense, and they got NFL dudes everywhere. They got talent up and down the roster, guys that are probably going to be playing on Sunday, quite a few of them. So what's kind of how do you see this Clemson offense matching up against this Florida State defense? What are the potential problems that FSU could present to this Clemson offense? And how do you think Clemson is going to attack them come Saturday?
Yeah, Florida State, when you look at how they kind of do their run their defense, Adam Fuller is the defensive coordinator. He kind of runs a little bit of a kind of the Nick Saban defense. A lot of quarters, a lot of man match stuff. And that requires a lot of communication on the second level because there's a lot of rules about who gets who, passing off guys. And one thing that I've noticed when watching Florida State is they do not communicate very well. And that has been the reason why they've given up big plays in the passing game. Mm-hmm. They are very easy to manipulate. And so, I think with what Garrett Riley likes to do, gives them a lot of formations, a lot of motions, a lot of eye candy that we've seen this year. I think that matches up in your favor. Now, the biggest thing is that Florida State has a legitimate NFL defensive line, at least individually. All of those players are guys that are probably going to be playing on Sundays. They haven't always played like it as a unit. But they certainly have the talent, and when they are playing well, they are tough to deal with. Whether it's Darrell Jackson, Joshua Farmer on the interior, Pat Payton and Marvin Jones Jr. on the edge, that is a really, really strong, really talented football players. And so, this is going to be a big game for Clemson's offensive line because I think if you can hold up in protection, the big plays will be there. They have not stopped the run particularly well at times this year. Teams have kind of been able to get, 5 or 6 yards when they've needed it. So I think, staying on schedule and creating opportunities for shot plays, I think those will definitely be there if Clemson plays up to that, that ability. They are very poor at linebacker. That's probably been the worst part of their team. Because I think their secondary, while they've had communication issues, they have talented football players. I don't think their linebackers are very talented. Offensively, they'll be very easy to manipulate as well, and you can create some matchups in the passing game as well. So I think ultimately, if you do those things, I think Clemson will have a successful day offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you just said, and I think it's a good challenge for the offensive line. I'm going to be interested to see how they match up, how they hold up. Like I said, last week was probably their worst game, but they still played pretty well. I'm not bagging on the offensive line at all. I've been extremely, extremely happy and frankly surprised at the level of offensive line play that we've had so far this season. And I think this will be a good test for them. And I have no doubt that coach is going to, Matt Luke is going to have them ready and raring to go for this matchup against Florida State, because this is going to be the most talented roster they've gone up against since Georgia. So, how do they answer the call, right? Struggled a little bit at points and times in the game last week. How do they answer that, right? And I have a good feeling they're going to answer it in a very positive way. I got a good feeling that Moffa could have a really big day. And like I said, like you said, Garrett Riley's going to scheme guys open. He's going to look to confuse those corners. They've showed the tendency to be able to be manipulated. And Cade Klubnik has shown the ability to exploit that so far this season. Cade Klubnik last year, we wouldn't have been able to exploit that, right? But this year's version of Cade Klubnik can absolutely exploit that and manipulate those safeties, manipulate those defensive backs. And Garrett Riley's one of the best in the country at kind of just scheming wide receivers open, and our wide receivers have played extremely well. So we will see what kind of what kind of effort this defense has. I think you look at this Florida State defense, and I think they've given up a lot of yards. They've given up a lot of points. They've struggled a lot this season. But I do think some of that is attributed to the poor offensive performances that FSU has put on the field, pretty much every game this season, right? It's really tough, even when you have a very talented, high-caliber defense, for them to go out of there drive after drive after drive. This is something that Clemson fans are no stranger to. We just got finished watching it for basically 3 seasons in a row of an offense just going out there and putting around and stall drive, punt here, turnover here, interception there, fumble here, and the defense is just put in bad situation after bad situation, and eventually the dam breaks, right? Kind of similar to what happened game 1 to Clemson against Georgia. The dam just kind of broke in that second half. Georgia got it going, and the offense was just not doing very much to support the defense. So I do think some of the poor defensive play is attributed that. You would hope that guys would keep a spirited effort regardless of what's happening on the other side of the ball. But these guys are humans, and everybody knows that that's not always the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this group is, again, like I said, this group is going to we're going to learn a lot about this group with how they respond to this environment and how this road environment, kind of how we can expect them to play in the future, possibly. So offensively, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to have success, but the execution you need to see the consistency and execution that you've seen the last 3 weeks. And if you do, I think you'll have a pretty good day offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears. We'll go this Florida State offense and how they match up against this Clemson defense. Now, obviously, we've already made it known. Everybody knows Brock Glenn, backup quarterback for the Seminoles, is going to get the start on Saturday. It's going to be his first start of the season. And he's had limited playing time, played some in reserve of Jordan Travis last season, obviously played some last game to close out. The game did not play particularly well, went 0-4 last game to kind of finish the game off. Again, the game was already out of hand, but, it's the unknown for Clemson. They got a very limited amount of tape on him. You think you know what they're going to do with him, but again, I'm always leery when you're kind of going against a quarterback that doesn't have a ton of tape, especially when a team's struggling. A lot of teams just rally around that new guy starting for whatever reason. It just tends to happen more often than not. So that's something to watch, I think, for this Florida State offense and particularly the Clemson defense going up against them. Wildcat with Lawrence Tolofili, I think that's definitely something that Florida State's going to try against Clemson. They're going to try to test the perimeter of this defense. Clemson has put on tape time and time again this season that we are not good at contain, that we allow the explosive run play, particularly on the edge of the defense. We let them break contain, and it goes for big yardage. So they're gonna test Clemson there and see if these defensive ends are up to, or these linebackers, whoever has edge contained, if they're up to the task to set that edge. That's something Clemson's got to be very diligent in this week. Florida State's offensive line has struggled this year. That does not bode well for them against this Clemson defensive line, particularly the interior. They've had a lot of penalties. So that's definitely something that's going to, not bode well for them. I think our defensive backs have held up really well. Our linebackers are starting to produce at the level that I expected them to produce early on in the season. The past couple games for the linebackers, they've just been getting better and better and better, and you're starting to see the level of play that we thought would happen early in the season. It's took a little bit, but, Barrett Carter is playing absolutely out of his mind. Sammy Brown's coming.
Yep.
Wade Woodaz with that crazy interception last week. He's playing. He's flying around everywhere. He looks a lot more comfortable out there. Looked a little slow to start the season, but they look to be back and just kind of playing free and playing fast again, which is good to see. So what are your thoughts on this Florida State offense? They've struggled pretty much every game they've played this season. How do you see them attacking this Clemson defense? Clemson's been particularly good against the run, although they've let the exterior run get away from them a bit. But this has been a pretty stingy defense as far as when you're talking about the first team defense.
Yeah, I think ultimately they're going to want to run the ball and find creative ways to run the ball, because I think otherwise it's going to be very difficult for them to generate offense. Watching this Florida State team, obviously it was with DJ Uiagalelei under center, so we'll see what things they do differently. But I think it starts with their offensive line. They have just not been at the level that people thought heading into the year. It was an experienced group with a lot of combined starts. They just lost one of their guards for the year, transferred from Florida, Richie Leonard. So again, offensive line that's already underperforming. He loses a guy, and they're not very deep. So it's just been a struggle to get that group to play up to speed, and this certainly hampered everything else that they've tried to do. The run game, it's been very easy to stop their run game. At least the teams that I watched didn't have much trouble. They walked a lot of guys up and messed with their protections, and not protection, but their assignments. And this SMU held Florida State to like 2.5 yards per carry. And it's just kind of been a consistent thing. I think their backs are pretty good. And Lawrence Toafili, as you mentioned, probably their best. And Cam Davis, the true freshman, has a lot of talent. I think he's going to be a good player in the future. But this Florida State offense is really limited. I think they went into the season, they wanted to be kind of what DJ did at Florida State. They thought they were going to be a run-heavy team with a lot of play-action shots and push the ball downfield. Well, the offensive line can't protect. They can't run the ball. And DJ has not been up. DJ was not nearly as good or accurate. Honestly, like even during his time at Clemson, he's playing a lot. He was playing a lot worse than that. And the receivers have just been pretty underwhelming. They haven't had anybody step up, and their tight end play might be the worst in Power 4. So all in all, this is an offense with not a lot going for it. So I think ultimately they're going to have to find some creative ways to run the football and keep the possessions, the total possessions in this game low, because that's kind of what they've had to do to stay close in games. So I think if you allow this Florida State offense to play, dictate the pace of this game, it could make things a little bit interesting. But otherwise, I think as long as you keep them, you dedicate resources to stopping the run, and if they beat you, if Brock Glenn beats you over the top, you kind of just tip your cap to them. But because I don't really trust their offensive line to hold up, and I don't think their receivers are all that good. And so we'll see how they do things. Brock Glenn is a little bit more athletic than DJ is, so potentially the quarterback run game might be more of a factor than it's been for Florida State so far. But he's not a super duper. I wouldn't call him a mobile quarterback. He can move around. He's not a statue. Yeah. Which that's probably a plus anyway for Florida State. But so just kind of keep in mind that, because they didn't do a lot of designed runs, quarterback runs, but that might be something that they try to kind of give Clemson's defense a different look.
Yeah, look, absolutely. This Florida State offense, it's really hard to imagine how they're going to consistently put drives together against this Clemson defense. Obviously, running the ball is going to be kind of what they want to do. They don't trust their passing game, and with Clemson's defensive backs, I don't think their wide receivers are going to be very open anyway. Running the ball, on the interior of that Clemson defense, not a great option. So they're definitely going to have to get creative and try to get out on the perimeter. They're probably going to go to the screen game quite a bit, to try to just get on that edge and try to test that Clemson defense.
A lot of RPOs.
Yeah, a lot of RPOs, a lot of stuff like that to just try to produce as much offense as they possibly can. But at the end of the day, they may have a drive here, a drive there, where they kind of get it going against this Clemson defense. But at the end of the day, I just don't see them to being able to consistently sustain drives throughout a 4-quarter game against this Clemson Tiger defense. You saw Clemson last week against Stanford, right? Stanford was absolutely torching them with that QB run and breaking big runs on the edge. And then you turn the page to the second half, and Clemson made the adjustments, right? And they played much better in that second half than they did the first half. So for those reasons, I think it's really going to be a struggle for them to produce. And this offensive line is not going to be able to protect Brock Glenn. Clemson's going to get pressure, and I don't think they're going to have to blitz to get it. So it could become a pretty long day for the Seminoles if they can't manufacture those yards, kind of on the edges of Clemson's defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to winning first down. I think that's one of the things that Florida State has struggled with all season is staying ahead of the chains and being on schedule, getting a second and medium. They've been in a ton of third and longs, and at least when DJ was playing, it was basically a death sentence for their drives. If they weren't getting a good chunk play on first down, the drive was going to stall. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's their first down efficiency has not been very good. And so I think winning, like I said, winning first down, puts it immediately handcuffs them because they don't have a lot of answers when they're not ahead of the chains. So I don't see a path where this Florida State offense has a ton of success on the aggregate, but if you let them put a couple first downs together and eat up clock and slow the pace of the game, you might be in for more of an interesting game than maybe you think. So as long as you don't let that happen.
Yeah, sure. No, and I could see them coming out with some wrinkles and some creative plays. I mean, Mike Norvell, make no mistake about it, he's a brilliant offensive mind, right? Yeah. So I could see them coming with some wrinkles that Clemson didn't plan for and getting some yardage and maybe putting a touchdown or two, in the end zone. But I trust Wes Goodwin, and I trust that defense to make the proper adjustments, whether that be on the sideline or whether that be at halftime. They will figure out a way to shut down whatever Florida State comes up with. So, again, I could see Florida State maybe having a little bit of success early with some of the wrinkles that I'm sure they're going to, produce with, whether that be Wildcat with Tolafili or whether that be, the spring game, this screen game, or RPO type stuff. But I don't see that being sustainable for 4 quarters. Clemson will make the adjustment, and they'll figure out a way to shut down what they're doing.
Absolutely. And, obviously, you guys can tell we like the matchup. Probably not a surprise. But again, this when a team is playing your back's against the wall and they don't really have anything to lose, you can be surprised. I said on the Florida State show that the inverse kind of happened last year when Florida State was the team that was on a roll. They had beaten LSU. They were looking crisp and looking like the best team in the conference. And, Clemson started the year losing to Duke and was kind of already behind the 8 ball as far as, kind of the ACC race was concerned. And they didn't look good in the games afterward either. But they ended up putting together one of their better performances of the year, even though they lost. Yeah. Sometimes, that can happen. And so,
strange things can happen. This is college football after all.
Especially since you're on the road.
Yeah. Look no further than Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. No one saw that coming. So
nope.
Yeah, I'm not saying we lose to Florida State. Again, if you've heard, us talk for almost an hour now, obviously we do not think that's going to happen. But with that said, anything's possible in college football. As cliche as that is, it's true. A team can, get some momentum and, create a couple negative plays and suddenly you're in a dogfight. And that's not where Clemson wants to find themselves on the road in Tallahassee.
No, you do not.
All right, guys, we got 34 people in the live chat right now. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button and helping us out with that. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That would be greatly appreciated. Don't forget, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Mark Rogers has the college football show. Go check it out over on the main channel, talking about all things college football. It's a great show. Make sure you go over there, give Mark a like, tell him hi in the comment section, and let him know that the guys over at the Clemson football channel sent you. And that'd be greatly appreciated, supporting the voice of college football in that way. All right, Jordan. We have kind of previewed the game. We've talked about the matchups that we like, the matchups that we don't like, the things that could or could not happen. But now is the time to make the picks against the spread and to give our overall score prediction on this upcoming game between the Florida State Seminoles and the Clemson Tigers. I'll give you the lines as they stand right now, where they started and where they are right now. And then we can go ahead with our picks both against the spread and our score prediction. So the line opened up at Clemson minus 15.5. It is now at Clemson minus 14.5. Over-under opened up at 46.5, and now it sits at 47.5. So, Jordan, with that information, what's your thoughts on the spread, the over-under, and your overall score prediction for this game against Florida State this weekend?
Yeah, obviously, really like the matchup. But I do think that Florida State defensively, they've played better the past couple of weeks, although I don't think the SMU game really showed it. At least their front has played a lot better. So I think they'll have some things and they'll make some plays. But I think Clemson ultimately will hit on enough explosive plays and kind of get the job done. I like Clemson to cover. It's only 14.5, doesn't quite feel like enough, but it's Vegas, and they don't always, it's always it's a rolling thing week to week as far as kind of how they power rate teams, and there's still a lot of priors, and obviously Florida State's defense has kept them in a lot of games. But I like Clemson to cover here. Score prediction, I'm feeling something like 38-10. I think I think Clemson has the opportunity to get 40 because if they don't allow Florida State to slow the game down, but I think they'll make enough plays and I don't expect Florida State to generate enough offense. So 38-10 feels about right, and Clemson rolls on to next week.
All right. So the spread for me, 14.5. Honestly, if I'm just being honest, looking at the game at the surface level, looking at how Florida State has played this year, how Clemson has played ever since that Georgia game, I just don't think 14.5 is enough. I think Clemson covers that. And the 47.5, I think the game goes over the 47.5. I think Clemson's probably going to get into the 40 range as far as points. So I definitely hit the over with the overall score total. And as far as, how I see this game playing out, I'm going to go, I could see Florida State coming out, having some wrinkles, putting a few drives together, kind of keeping it close, maybe first quarter and a half. But definitely, late into the second quarter, definitely third and fourth quarter, I see Clemson kind of pulling away. I just don't think Florida State has enough. I think they can hang around early, but Clemson ultimately is going to pull away and put some distance on the scoreboard between them and the Seminoles. My score prediction, 41-14. Clemson wins going away.
I like it.
A couple score predictions in the chat. Cade Klubnik Enthusiast says 45-13. Tigers. Hustler Inc. says 48-13. Clemson football kickoff says 50-17. So everybody predicted more points for the Tigers than we are, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm giving Florida State's defense more credit than that, but it could, and that's one thing I haven't mentioned. Florida State has shown, I'm not one to really read into players and their kind of their mentality and stuff, but when things have not been going well, the body language has not always been very good with Florida State. I think there was a little bit of quit last week against SMU. I think you can. If you get that, especially if you get that Florida State defense to quit, this could get ugly. But I do think they're going to come out fired up. It is Clemson, and they have, put together a game plan. This game has not really gotten out of hand in a while. Even the 2022 game, they fought. It was a 34-14 game in Tallahassee, and Florida State fought back to kind of close the gap a little bit. So I think that Florida State will come out with some energy. But if you can zap that energy, then that's when I think you could potentially really light up the scoreboard. But we'll see.
Yeah, if Clemson has a similar start that they've had the past few weeks on offense, I think you could see Florida State kind of in give up mode quickly in this game, especially if that Clemson offense starts, like they did against App State, or like they did against North Carolina State, where it's kind of over before you blink and the first quarter ends, and Clemson's already up 28 points. I could see Florida State going in give up mode, but like I said, I'm going to give their defense a little bit more credit than that. Like you said, and I'm going to predict that they keep it close for about a quarter and a half. Maybe until halftime, and then I think Clemson kind of pulls away in the second half, kind of similar to what happened last week. Although the score wasn't super close, it was 20-7 at halftime. So I could see something like that, and then Clemson putting the distance in the third quarter. But guys, we got 34 people in the live chat. We got one more segment, the BYOG or sell segment, and then we are going to turn it over to you guys, the comment section. So make sure you're getting your questions. Make sure you're getting your comments in the live chat right now, and me and Jordan will be responding to those here right after this next segment. BYOG or sell, Jordan, the most famous segment I think we've ever had on this show so far. Definitely the most popular one, fan favorite, if you will. So we'll go back and forth with a couple BYOG or sells of our own, then see what the comment section is saying with BYOG or sell, and then we'll turn it over and just read regular questions and comments for the rest of the time that we have. All right, I'll go ahead and start, Jordan. I'm going to go Phil Maffa. Now, Phil Maffa is averaging 8 yards a carry so far this season. He's got 43 carries on the season, 300-plus yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. I'm going to say Phil Maffa doubles his touchdown total in this game. So Maffa, 2 or more rushing touchdowns against the Seminoles. BYOG or sell?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to sell just because the way they've played and utilized him, it's kind of just it's just kind of a sprinkle of film off of every game. Like and that sprinkle is really good, but like they're load managing him. It's like they're going to get him
7 to 10 carries a game.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if he's going to get the opportunities, and because especially with the way this Clemson offense is taking shots down the field. So I think he gets 1, but I don't think he doubles it. He would have to get 2. So I'm selling. But it could happen. It could certainly happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Could definitely happen.
All right. BYOG or sell. We will see 2 Florida State quarterbacks on Saturday. Their backup is the true freshman, 5-star Luke Kromenhoek. There's a lot of Florida State fans that want to see him as well. If the game gets out of hand or Brock Glenn struggles early, you think would Brock have a short leash, and we see Luke in not just in like garbage time, but in actual second, third quarter type action. So
I'll go BYOG on that. I'll buy that just because I don't know if they bench Brock Glenn during this game. I don't know if it gets to that point, but I do think this game is probably going to get away from Florida State late, and they probably will want to see what that true freshman has to offer, seeing as DJ's probably going to be out for a period of time. If Brock Glenn doesn't look super good against Clemson, maybe into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, they kind of turn the keys over to that young freshman and just kind of see what happens. Maybe they're just playing for the future, right, and just seeing what they have in that freshman QB. I could definitely see that happen, so I'll buy.
And people in the chat mentioning that Kromenhoek has been reported in practice to have that they've worked some packages in, at least in practice.
They're gonna. I fully believe that Florida State is going to throw every single thing they possibly can at Clemson on Saturday. They're not going to hold anything back. They'll have Toafili and the Wildcat. They'll have a package for that true freshman quarterback. They'll have they'll throw everything that Norvell can think of. They're going to throw at Clemson to try to stay in this game and make it competitive, which is why this game worries me a little bit, right? It just like there's a world where this becomes, a nail biter, a heart attack game, if you will, right? So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully Clemson can pull away. But I fully expect Florida State to kind of throw the kitchen sink at the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think they're trying to find an offensive identity, so they're going to want to see what works, what sticks, what doesn't. Because they have a lot of young pieces. They're going to want to work a lot of young guys in, not just the quarterbacks. Kind of playing for the future and not really the scoreboard. So yeah, that's definitely in the cards. All right. Oh no, it's you.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay.
Yeah.
BYOG or sell Cade Klubnik 3+ passing touchdowns.
BYOG. Yeah, I think he'll hit 3. Like that number a lot, and he's hit 3 in every game. He's probably due to have a below 3.
Yeah.
I mean every game since the Georgia game. So he's probably due for one lower, but I think there's going to be too many up. They're going to want to take shots in this game, and I think he'll hit on some. And even in the red zone, they've had a propensity to pass it. So
yeah, they have.
I like 3. All right.
Last one, and then we'll turn it to the comment section.
Okay. BYOG or sell a freshman will have an interception.
Ooh, a freshman.
Could be a true freshman or a redshirt freshman. They both count.
Okay. I'll buy. I think, I could definitely see Brock Glenn trying to force something downfield. Clemson kind of starting to pull away, and he's trying to make a play and make something happen. Yeah, I'll buy. I think they will.
I'm with you. All right, let's see what you guys are hitting on in the live chat. Some of y'all. Let me see. So I should have started the ones I saw, but
Yeah.
K Clubbing Enthusiast has total 5 total touchdowns. I'm gonna sell.
Ooh, that's a lot. I'm gonna sell. I'm gonna sell. That's a lot. I know he's done it this season, and he's certainly capable of it. But I'm gonna sell. I don't think he gets 5.
Because I picked 38. I picked 38 to 10, especially for me. So like that math, like he would have to score every single touchdown that you score, for that to happen. He'd have to be responsible for every single score at least. And I think Phil Maffa or any of the running backs will be responsible for at least a couple. All right. John Sarin with a good one. BYG or sell. Vizina gets to play and contribute 7 or more points. Ooh. He's seen action in all 3 games since the Georgia game, and he has not produced a scoring drive since the App State game.
You know what? I'm gonna buy. I don't know why, but I'm gonna buy. I think, yeah.
I'm going to sell
and score a touchdown.
I'm going to sell, but I would like to see that. That would be nice. If you get to that point. Jay says BYG or sell. Tyler Brown has, I think he means more than 50 yards receiving against FSU.
Easy. He might do that on 1 catch.
Tyler Brown?
Oh, Tyler Brown. My bad.
I was
thinking Brian Wesco. My bad.
Yeah, I was like that's a little confident for a guy to.
Because I don't think he's playing. I'll sell. I don't think he's playing.
Yeah. I'll sell too. He has not got.
If he does play, I think it'll be very limited snaps. He's got that ankle injury, sprain, or whatever it is. They're not going to be in a hurry to get him back in there. And if there's any risk, I just think they'll hold him. Again, I know he came out last week for the warm-ups when they're in like T-shirts and shorts and stuff like that. But other than that, he didn't warm up at all. So I just don't think he's going to play at all. And if he does, I don't think it'll be very much.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. He's like I was telling Jordan before we came on today that he's kind of Antonio Williams last year. Had an explosive freshman campaign, led the team in receiving, and year 2 as a sophomore just can't stay on the field. Injury here, injury there. So it's unfortunate. I hope he shakes back, and maybe the second half of the season he can kind of, come back into his own.
Yeah. Clemson football kickoff with a good one. BYOG or sell. TJ Moore gets his first 100-yard game.
Ooh.
Now that would be cool. I do think TJ Moore is going to see a lot of targets in this game. Especially he's back in his home state, and with everything that him and his family have been through, and I think they've been trying to get him more opportunities.
Yeah.
Anyway, screw it. BYOG. I'm just going to say TJ Moore is your leading receiver.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that. Just because of I'm going to speak it into existence because I hope it happens for him. Yeah. I hope he has a killer game back in his state for the first time. His family's going through all that stuff. I hope it happens for him. I hope he has a monster outing. 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
All right. Maybe one more, and then we'll go to the regular comments. Hustler Inc. asked a big question, a big picture one. He says, BYG or sell. Clemson will be number 3 in the college football final rankings, ACC championship win. would make us number 3? Will it? I mean, it may not.
Probably.
Not necessarily. You would think so.
It probably will.
Depends on what the Big 12 picture looks like.
It definitely depends on the Big 12.
And how many losses do you have? Because again, it's the top 4 conference champions get a bye, but that could happen in any order. And what if it's like what if like a 3-loss SEC team is gets slotted in there or whatever. Like it depends on the teams around them. I'm going to sell.
If you're a 12-1 Clemson team, just won the ACC championship game, probably if you're picking it right now against Miami, you're probably going to be number 3.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most likely situation because the Big 12 picture is so muddied and Florida, the SEC and the Big 10 are just are probably going to get preferential treatment, but I think it depends.
I'll buy just because it feels wrong to say sell.
All right, I think you convinced me. I'll buy it too. BYOG. All right, we do have a super chat from. Oh my gosh, I can't read today. Hit Wonder 101. Thank you for the $5. He says Clemson must go to Doak and destroy FSU from the word go. 60+ to 10 Clemson.
Dang.
Wow. Dang.
I hope you're right.
That would be nice, but
Right.
That's like Trevor Lawrence going into Tallahassee back in 2018 level.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's steep. I think Florida State's defense is better than that. But.
Clemson has shown the ability to do that this season. Because they've shown the ability to start fast. I do think if Clemson starts fast offensively in this game, it's probably going to get ugly quickly.
Yeah.
But
60 seems like a lot, and once at a certain point, they're going to take the first team out, and I don't expect that.
Right. Yeah, no, 60 is a lot. But I do think it could get ugly if Clemson starts fast, which as a Clemson fan, that's what you would hope they would do. But if it looks, like we did against Stanford last week where we kind of, some drives stalled and we kind of muddled around a little bit in that first half, it could stay close for a bit.
All right. And once again, thank you, Hit Wonder, for the super chat. Let's see what you guys are hitting on in the live chat. Still doing a lot of BYOG or so. We have started comments. Some of them are really old. But John said earlier in the chat, he said Florida State hasn't had a single 300-yard game yet. Not going to happen against Clemson either. Yeah, they have struggled, to put up at least in terms of volume. It doesn't help that their pace is one of the slowest in college football. But yeah, they're not explosive at all, and they haven't been able to put a lot of drives together. So
this defense better not.
Yeah,
better not.
No, better not. Zachariah asks, do you guys think Blake Miller could end up truly being the first-round offensive line we have had, and I don't even know how long? I mean, I think potentially. One thing that Dabo mentioned in a press conference, I think last week, was that he expected he didn't mention Blake Miller in the names of guys that he expected to be gone after this year. So potentially, if you get Blake Miller back, that's a big deal for the offensive line. But depending on what his draft grade looks like, he could come back for another year and really solidify it with a strong year.
Dabo said he was only expecting one offensive lineman to leave.
Yeah, and that was Marcus Tate.
Marcus Tate, yeah.
Because Walker Parks.
Walker Parks has another year.
Yeah.
Of eligibility,
which is crazy.
I did not know until
I did not know that either.
I thought he was done. But, yeah, potentially we could only lose Walker Parks off of the starting five.
Marcus Tate. You mean Marcus Tate?
Marcus Tate.
Yeah.
From the starting five of that offensive line, which would be really good.
Dude. And then you just it would be and then you just slot Colin Sadler in.
Yeah, you just slide Colin Sadler in there, who's played a ton of snaps. I'd be okay with that. That'd be just fine.
Just fine. All right. David says Dabo will try not to embarrass FSU. Well, yeah, I mean, he hasn't really tried to embarrass anybody this year. I mean, just he's taking guys when the game is out of hand, he's taking guys out, and that's been that. So if that does happen, I wouldn't expect him to pour it on.
I mean,
really, the times it's happening.
I don't think Clemson goes out there and tries not to score. They just put the second, third team guys in and
run the regular offense,
and then they either execute or they don't.
Right.
But I don't think Dabo's like handicapping Garrett Riley in his play calling when they put the 2s and 3s in. I think he's letting them call whatever. And that, so.
And you have to remember, like the second string is the second string for a reason. So they're not going to be able to run the playbook, everything in the playbook like you can with the first team offense. Right. So it just by default it's going to be vanilla anyway. They have to learn how to do the basic stuff.
A lot of those guys are running scout team all during the week, so they're not even involved in the game plan for that week. So they're kind of going in there, sort of blind when they get put in. So that's another reason that that's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, Dabo's not in the business of embarrassing people. He's always been like that.
Let's see. Clemson football kickoff says Clemson isn't playing scary anymore. Riley is in full control. Well, and I think like it's not even just that Riley is in full control. It's just that
we're executing.
Everybody's executing that, and you weren't doing that last year. You couldn't run the stuff, a lot of the stuff that we've seen this year because they couldn't do the basic stuff. Right? Like you guys were like last year, Clemson's offense could barely run counter right. So it's like you don't even you have to. They had to strip a lot of things back because they were like, okay, this is obviously too much. We need to make sure that they can do this stuff right, or we can't, because everything that we do and all the cool stuff we want to do builds off of the core principles. And now you have a team that understands and can execute the core principles. And now that's when you get to have fun and you get to add all the wrinkles that you've seen the last 3 weeks. And it's been fun, man. It's good when the coaching and the players are buying in and fully and have a good understanding of what they're doing, because that was not the case at times last year. And it wasn't just like everybody was messing up. It was always just one guy or one or two guys not doing their job, and that's the difference between a sack, tackle for loss, turnover, or an explosive play. And there were just so many times you missed on that because you just had guys that weren't able to execute it. And now you do. And you're seeing the results.
I see what you did there, John.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to get into it.
That's funny. That's funny.
Dylan asks, what is the likelihood of securing Donovan Murph for the last wide receiver in 2025? Yeah, that's a good question. Dylan asks about the in-state wide receiver Donovan Murph, recently reclassified to the 2025 class. Clemson heavily involved, South Carolina, Bama is another team. I think the chances are I think Clemson has a really good shot It's still not clear how far he's going to extend his recruitment. I think he said he wanted to extend it into February, but we'll see. We'll see. But Clemson's trying to get him in. South Carolina, Bama has been calling, and they certainly have pull as well. So I think those are the three teams in the mix, and I think Clemson has as good a shot as any. Him reclassifying, I think, is really good for both in-state schools. So, but we'll see. Jay says, I also need a Tink Kelly explosive play. We heard a lot about him since high school. Yeah, we haven't seen a ton of him except in garbage time. But we'll see if they can get him a wrinkle or two or a play out there and see if he has an opportunity. Just get the ball out to him in space on like a screen or something. It'd be interesting because we haven't really gotten to see much of it yet. David says one player ran the field with the coach at practice. Oh, talking about Florida State. The other players jogged down the sideline on video. Yeah. You guys don't know what he's talking about. Florida State or Mike Norvell before every practice, like they have like this race in the indoor facility. It's kind of like it's a culture, like how you do anything is how you do everything type of thing. And and that's last year when they would post videos, it was like most of the team was out there running with him. But now it's not a lot. I don't always read into stuff like that, but it was interesting, and people were definitely making a big deal about it on social media. So it's interesting. Hustler Inc. says, how do you think Wesco or Moore fares up against the talents of Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith and the whole freshman wide receiver outlook? That's a really good question. Man, it's kind of hard to say. I think Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith are kind of there's this freshman wide receiver crop is as talented as we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith have certainly seen more volume. And in terms of their height, like just how they looked in high school, I would say they're probably like a step above where Wesco and Moore are. I think just from as far as readiness is concerned, Wesco was ready to go like pretty early, but he also had the spring, and he had to work on his body. And TJ, Dabo's mentioned he still has some fundamental things that he needs to fix. Like he's not like I don't think those two are as close to finished products as Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. I think they're just from a body type standpoint, all of that, they were just kind of more ready to go. But that's not really saying much. Those are two of the best freshman wide receivers. We've seen in college football in quite some time. So I think TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco are they belong in that that group with a lot of the other guys. The Cam Colemans and Ryan Wingo at Texas. Like I could go on it. Like this is a really really loaded wide receiver class. So but Wesco and Moore I think are as talented as any of them, and we'll see them continue to grow as the season goes on. David asks, any updates on Christian Ingram? Does the commitment today impact him? No, it doesn't. Christian Ingram, I think he's going to visit Georgia at some point. Georgia's kind of been getting involved with him. We'll see kind of, how his recruitment sort of shakes out. But no, the Mekhi Williams Lee committing to Clemson is not going to affect his recruitment. But if he goes elsewhere, it's not because of that. Let's see. Dylan says, oh, good Lord. There's always something in my wide receiver recruiting should be a lot better with the deep ball back. Will this be a more than 10+ deep passing game versus FSU? I'm not.
I think he's saying will they take 10+ deep shots against FSU?
10
week.
plus?
I don't know about 10. They'll take quite a few though.
I think they'll take it. I think they'll take a good bit.
And certainly Clemson having the explosiveness back in the offense will certainly make wide receiver recruiting a lot easier. That's no doubt about that.
Yep. Isaac says Jeremiah Smith is apparently a one of one as a prospect. I mean, he's up there. He's one of the better.
He's good.
Better wide receiver prospects out of high school that we've seen for sure. So he's like that. He's like that. He came in as Ohio State's. He's Ohio State's best receiver, really.
Which is
not wide receiver. Ohio State lost all that.
Saying something.
Because
they don't lack wide receiver talent.
No, they don't. And he's been a stud. So. David says to me means Wesco is smooth, getting better every day. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that has just been so impressive is just how fast he is. I mean, you saw it some in his high school tape, but you didn't really get the full picture until you saw him out there on the field. Like, man, he's blowing by dudes.
He makes DBs look so slow. And he doesn't look like he's trying to run that fast.
No.
Like, some people, like, when they're running full speed, like, you could tell, like, there's a lot of effort there. Like, it looks effortless to Wesco.
He's just gliding out there.
And he looks like a natural, man. His speed is lethal out there.
I mean, and he ran track, but his numbers, like, I was talking about this with a friend, like, his numbers weren't that great. I mean, they were fine, but, like, they didn't really jump, like, hitting 22 miles per hour type speed.
It translates to the football field, whatever he's doing. So he gets a step on somebody, they're not catching him. As long as the ball's thrown in stride.
Chris Brown says Dabo changes the narrative about the transfer portal player development if Clemson has success in the playoffs this year. I mean, if this team makes it to the playoff and wins a playoff game or two, I mean, I think even if they make the playoffs, there will be some reconsideration about kind of the opinions of Dabo's approach and that.
Yeah.
So
I think it'll quiet some of it. I still think some of it'll
it won't completely go away.
It just goes to the old adage, right? Like, winning cures all.
Right.
Winning cures everything.
It would definitely dampen it a good bit, and it wouldn't saturate everything about Clemson. Like this offseason, like you listen to podcasts, you listen to national media folks, and it's like every time Clemson comes into the conversation, it's transfer portal, and NIL. Transfer portal, NIL.
Transfer portal, NIL. That's all you heard. All offseason. We talked about it in the offseason, how we were just sick of hearing, like, every time Clemson was talked about, all it was about was the lack of transfer portal use, and Clemson doesn't do NIL, which is not true. But,
a lot of people believe that for some reason.
When the rhetoric and the narrative gets out there, like, people just run with it, whether it's true or not. But, and look, Clemson needs to use the portal. Like, make no mistake about it. There are going to be instances where Clemson is going to need to use the portal. Dabo's success this year, Clemson's success this year is definitely going to, quiet some of that criticism. But they're still going to throw Clemson up there on the graphics with Navy and Army and Air Force and Coast, whoever, all the service academies that don't do transfers either, right? They're still going to throw them up there. And there are going to come, situations where Clemson has to use the portal. One of the concerns is, from a Clemson standpoint, right? We do a pretty good job of not losing our starters. We probably lost 2 ish starters via the transfer portal since it's been a thing, but we do lose several depth pieces every single year, right? And when you replace those constantly with high school recruiting, you're getting very young. You're getting younger and younger when it comes to your depth. So some of that, it does give you a reason to be concerned long term. But again, it remains to be seen. I think there's a happy medium somewhere where you kind of pluck a player here, pluck a player there, and don't become consumed with living and dying by the transfer portal, which is something I don't ever want to see Clemson do. And we don't need to. Clemson does a very good job in high school recruiting. They do a very good job in evaluating. A lot of their coaches are very good at finding those pieces that are really going to fit what we do from a schematic standpoint. So, but depending on the success that we continue to have this season, it will get a lot quieter on that front.
Yeah. And I said on the Florida State show, I said it's not even really about the frequency at which you use the transfer portal or the volume. You just need to when you decide to use it, and when you feel like you need to go get it, you need to be able to get that player. Like you have not done they've been over so far when they've tried.
Like Clemson, you should be able to go cherry pick that person if you want them, right?
Well, other than like. Paul Tyson and Hunter Johnson, but obviously that's a very different thing.
Do those really count? Not really.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Clemson football kickoff. He asked, "Do we get?" He says, "Do we get Wesco or Moore if Coleman or Matthews commit?" I think so. Because Clemson did view all 4 of those guys like they were willing to oversign if like more than 2 of them wanted to come. That was made pretty clear by people who were very familiar with those recruitments. They viewed because they viewed Cam Coleman and Mike Matthews as oversign worthy. So it would be true vice versa, I think. And I think especially with Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore, personality wise, they were really attracted to Clemson regardless. So I feel like obviously maybe Wesco or Moore committing might have affected Cam Coleman and Mike Matthews, but vice versa. I don't think it would have been the same vice versa if the other 2 were the ones that committed and you're trying to oversign for Wesco or Moore. I feel like you could have landed them, but that's completely speculation on my part. So I think that those 2 particularly were very, very they fell in love with what Clemson was about and knew that was where they wanted to be. And that's
I think we landed the right guys. Nothing against the other ones, but it's worked out pretty well for the Tigers so far.
Yeah, certainly has. But you can never have too many talented guys.
No, look, I'd have loved to land all 4 of them.
Crazy we had all 4 of them on because
bring them all in.
Previous cycle we had not had that collection of talent at one position, really, or at wide receiver particularly like that. That was pretty cool. All right.
Got a super chat.
Eric. Oh, did I miss? Oh, yes. Sweet. Kuzi with another $5. What's up, my man? He says, if we played UGA or a defense similar again on a scale from week 1 and week 5, where do you see the offense stacking up against good competition? Yeah, that's a good question. I think I still needed more of a sample size. We just, I want to see them on the road. But my intuition says that, if you play that Georgia game again, with the current personnel usage and the current starters and all of that, I don't say you win the game, but I think you have a little bit more success offensively.
Right.
I think a lot of your issues against Georgia wasn't them just flat out, beating you up. It was like a lot of execution errors and a lot of things that just kept you from getting in a rhythm. And Georgia has something to do with that, but wide receivers lining up and incorrectly and negating first downs and chunk plays is not anything Georgia did. That's you not doing basic stuff. And obviously playing your young guys, your two dynamic true freshman wide receivers more than 12 snaps combined would probably help at least a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think you would do better. You would certainly do better this time. I say this time like it's happening, but a hypothetical second time around.
Yeah,
I feel pretty.
No, I agree with you. And look, it's to your point, it's really hard to kind of say what Clemson's offense. Hopefully we get the opportunity to play a defense like that again. But it's hard to say how we would perform. But I agree. I think we would perform a lot better. I think one of the big things was confidence for this offense and seeing it actually happen on the field. Because all the reports out of fall camp were they were hitting explosive plays and they were having success. And then we watched that game one, and I was like, there's no way that offense had success against our defense. There's no way. I don't believe it. And now we've kind of seen them explode time and time again. And, yes, some of that is probably attributed to level of competition you're playing. But, Clemson scoring on 12 straight drives, I don't think that's not all, you're playing weaker competition. That's just you're executing at a very high level, and you have a lot of skill on offense. Do we win that Georgia game second go around? I'd say probably no, but it certainly wouldn't be a 30-plus point blowout, right?
Right. And you generate more than 100. How many yards of offense did they have in that game? Like 190, 89,
180 something.
Yeah,
something like that. And Georgia had 400 and something.
Yeah,
it was completely lopsided. But I definitely think we're capable of a lot more success against a much higher caliber defense. But again, that remains to be seen, and hopefully we get the opportunity where we get to see it on the field. Because if we do, that means we've earned our way into some pretty special games towards the end of the season.
Absolutely. All right. I think we hit on mostly everything that I wanted to hit on. I feel like this is a good place to wrap it up.
Absolutely. We got 44 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. Really do appreciate it. Florida State week's going to be fun. Can't wait to see the game. Can't wait to see you guys in the post-game live. Remember, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button on your way out. It really helps us out here. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you know somebody that enjoys college football content, tell them about our show. Share our channel with them. Me and Jordan do the All-In Show right here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We also do post-game live reactions to each and every Clemson Tiger game throughout the season. Hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. Thank you guys so much for showing up and getting into the comment section like you always do. We will see you this Friday. Show will be about 3.5 hours after kickoff time, or about 10 to 15 minutes after the clock hits zero in Tallahassee this Saturday. Me and Jordan will be hopping on right here on the Clemson Football Channel to give you our live reaction of everything that we saw in the game. Jordan, you got anything for the people?
No. Once again, thank you guys for showing up, showing out. And we will see you guys on Saturday. It's another great week. and hope that you guys have a good game. I know some of you are I know a couple of you that live in the Florida area might be going to the game. So be safe. I know there's been a lot of obviously probably still a lot of road closures and highways and stuff still being just sort of cleared up. So if you are going to the game, safe travels. But till then, we'll see you guys on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Until then, guys, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.